guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Dji, and did you know apparently cockroaches can hold their breath for 40 minutes? I don't know why they'd want to hold their breath for Anyway guys, in today's YouTube video, I'm going to be comparing the famous Sony A7 III, which is my primary camera, against the Sony A7 IV, which is what I'm filming today's video on. So I know there's a plethora of YouTube videos out there reviewing the Sony A7 IV and sometimes comparing it to its older brother, the Sony A7 III. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna give you guys differences that I think matter, in the real world, rather than just spec sheet differences. So not stuff like camera A shoots this amount of resolution, camera B shoots that amount, this one has this many megapixels, that one has this many megapixels. So if you want to see stuff like that, there's plenty of YouTube videos comparing those technical differences. But today I'm gonna give you guys things that I experienced for the first time using this A7 IV. So I want to share with you guys 4 major differences that I noticed that I don't see a lot of people talk about on YouTube videos or reviews between the Sony A7 IV and the Sony A7 III. So before we get started, all the footage that's shot on both of these Sony cameras will be shot using the amazing Tamron 17-70 f2.8 lens. This is a great lens with a lot of versatility. It's an f2.8 lens, it's really fast. The autofocus performance is amazing. It is an APS-C lens, but thankfully these cameras do have APS-C Super 35 modes, which does mean it's not necessarily a 17-70 full frame equivalent. It is something like 25-105 or somewhere around there, full frame equivalent. So it is something like having a 24-105 f2.8 lens for your full frame camera. That's a fantastic amount of reach. It's very wide and very telephoto, an amazing lens overall. So all the technical comparisons that I'll be showing you guys will be shot using that Tamron 17-70 f2.8. One, to keep things fair, and also, it's a good bit of glass. It's the best bit of glass that I have available to me today. So yeah, all those tests are going to be shot whenever I'm showing you footage from the A7 III. It's going to be shot with the 17-70, and likewise for the Sony A7 IV. So we're going to start with the biggest exterior difference of all, and that is the flip out screen versus the tilt out screen. Now, I've watched plenty of camera tech reviewers talk about how photographers love this tilt out mechanism. Personally, when I'm shooting photos, I hate this screen. I don't know anyone who would want to have this screen for photography unless you only shoot landscapes. Aside from being good for landscapes, it's really horrible for photography, especially if you want to get a low angle portrait shot. You just can't do it with a tilt out screen that doesn't flip out, because at a certain point, this screen, if you're gonna shoot in portrait mode and go low, there's nothing you can do in terms of flipping it out that's actually gonna let you see what you're working on. So a certain angle, low angle, you can't see what you're doing, and the only solution is to bend and break your back in certain ways, or lie down on the floor. That's just not it's a ghetto, man. And to any YouTuber that has ever said, this is what photographers want, I would love to meet those photographers to explain to me why that's any better than a flip out screen. And the second reason why a flip out screen to me is the most helpful thing to have, at least as a filmmaker, is I can see myself in the shot. Finally, if I was shooting this video like I always do on my Sony A7 III, I wouldn't be seeing what my frame looks like right now. So I got back into vlogging, and I've been using my A7 III for that, and it's been basically a nightmare to vlog on, because you can't see yourself in any of the shots that you set up, whether it's a stationary shot or a shot that you're holding out like this. You can't see what you're doing. You don't know if the frame is cutting off your head, or they're giving too much headroom. You can't see anything. You can't see your exposure, if your white balance is changing. And in a vlogging situation, all those things really matter if you want to have high quality vlogs. All right, I'm going to touch on something else that's very different in this camera versus the A7 IV, and it's another exterior difference, and that's the side grip of the camera. I think the first time I picked up an A7 IV, it just felt nice to hold. Like, I like this, my hand likes this, and it wasn't uncomfortable to hold at all. And then, after holding the camera for quite some time, I went back and held my A7 III, and it just felt wrong. It just didn't feel right in the hands anymore. And that grip makes a world of difference when it's done well. Another thing that I don't think I've seen any YouTube video talking about, any reviewer talk about, just any comparison video between the A7 IV and the A7 III, I've not heard anyone talk about how much better the buttons on the back of the camera are. And that sounds like something so ridiculous. And people are like, talking about buttons, like surely you can press these buttons, it's just fine. And I kid you not, it's life-changing how much better it is to interface and navigate things on the A7 IV, just because the buttons extrude out of the camera even better, and the switches are better, the clicks are better, everything just works better as you press it. It's just a way better experience. And you know, there's no skipping this without talking about how the worst placed button on this Sony A7 III is the record button. Easily one of the most important buttons in this entire camera, and it's the worst placed button. It's the least extruded button, and you know, I've heard, and myself included, we've missed recordings simply because we thought we had depressed the record button. So you press the button again when you think you've finished recording, and then you see it starts recording, and just like, wow, that's just so silly. And that just doesn't happen with the Sony A7 IV. So last external thing I'm going to talk about is this side here, but also kind of both sides here. Just generally on the outside section of the camera, you have the doors of the ports as well as the camera strap holders. The other day I made a story on Instagram, and I showed, you know, the noise difference between the A7 III and the A7 IV, and I simply picked up the camera and I just shook it like that. It's such a funny thing. The A7 IV, which I'm filming on right now, doesn't make any sound when you shake it. Now you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with anything? Now if you're like me and then you're into vlogging, so let's say you want to put a microphone on top and you want to run it strapless because you know, a lot of us do run it strapless because straps are so finicky sometimes. If you're say in a car or in a bumpy area, or just running, or not running, but like if you're doing something where you're not like stationary like this and your microphone is sitting on top of the camera, the slightest bit of shake and it makes a sound that gets captured by the microphone. And that's crazy to me. Like, I didn't think that would actually be a thing that would be on a, you know, a $2,000 camera. Like, that was like a crazy thing to find out. So on the A7 IV, you know, they've handled that. The strap holders are dampened, so they actually don't fling around. They actually like just hold in place, but when the strap moves up and down, it moves up and down without any looseness. So it's dampened well. The doors, they don't fling open, they don't, you know, come out so cheaply and swing around. If I was to open all these doors right now, right, and just look how they just flail about, right? Just look at that. Like, they're so finicky, they just block each other, and it's not optimal. Like, this is just poorly thought out engineering right there. And yeah, I really don't like that. And they improved it on the A7 IV, and it just works. So now I'll get off the external differences and go into the meat of the cameras, the internals, the specs. So I'm gonna start with the elephant in the room, which is 10-bit versus 8-bit. If you're wondering what 10-bit versus 8-bit means, this A7 III, the older one, shoots 8-bit color. The newer A7 IV shoots 10-bit color. And what that basically means is the A7 IV is able to capture a lot more color information. Now, why is that a big thing, you ask? Well, just like this scene of mine, there's a lot of yellow in the background, right? If I shot this YouTube video, and one day I'll probably shoot something similar with my A7 III that shoots 8-bit, and I pointed it at this yellow background, there will be a lot of loss of information because simply the camera cannot capture it. And what it does instead of showing a black square where there should be some color that it can't capture, it just puts other false colors, and therefore you get what we call banding. Now, I'm just going to show you an example of what banding looks like, because to explain it in words is kind of tricky for me, but like, it's like bands of colors, it's noise, it's squares, and it's just disgusting to look at sometimes. We are moving into an era where most current generation consumer cameras like the A7 IV, the A7R5, the A7 III, the FX30, all these cameras, even the Canon stuff, the R5, the R3, the R7, all these cameras shoot in 10-bit. So people are gonna start noticing that your footage out of an 8-bit camera definitely looks worse. Just as an example, Last year I shot a live set using this A7 III, and the live set had monochromatic scenes where one was fully yellow, one was fully red, one was fully blue. I can generally isolate for you inside the frames of those videos sections of banding and destruction of the colors, simply because the camera does not shoot 10-bit. 4 to 10-bit color is not the future, it's the now. Like, you need to be shooting in 10-bit right now. Like, you've probably heard or seen that S-Log3 is the best picture profile to shoot on in 10-bit. It was designed and made for 10-bit cameras. This guy, A7 III, shoots S-Log3, and I've been shooting S-Log3 with it for a really long time, but I stopped because S-Log3 is not designed for 8-bit capable only cameras. It's designed for those that shoot 10-bit, and because this doesn't shoot 10-bit, it doesn't shoot S-Log3 properly. So you're getting more dynamic range, yes, but you get a worse looking image, you get more banding, you get even worse degradation of your image when you try and color grade it in post.
Hey guys, so this is post-production Gatehi, and unfortunately I have to continue the rest of the video through a voiceover because whilst I was shooting this, the batteries on my lapel kind of expired. They didn't die, they kind of expired, they just ended their lifespan. So if you've been noticing through the previous sections, the audio started cutting out, and at this point it just got to a level where it was so bad I just have to do a voiceover. So on to my next point, and that's gonna be something that I feel like is gonna not resonate with a lot of people that have either talked about the A7 III or used the A7 III, but maybe you'd agree with me at this point. But there's a lot of guys that have talked about the autofocus of the A7 III being good, and to tell you the truth, the autofocus in video on the A7 III is one of the worst I have ever used on any camera. I know several people that own an A7 III, and we've, I don't know, like bonded on the fact that the autofocus was a overhyped capability of this camera, and it shows. Now I'm just gonna show you a couple of tests between the A7 III and A7 IV, and as you can see, as I'm ducking in and out of frame or going back and forth, you know, in the distance between me and the camera here, the autofocus on the A7 IV keeps up way more reliably, especially because it has eye autofocus inside of video mode, whereas the A7 III doesn't have eye autofocus in video mode. Now this is not for all situations. Sometimes it does grab focus properly, sometimes it's reliable, sometimes if you pair it with a good lens it's reliable, but in my experience, even with using G Master lenses, it's really slow compared to what is being offered in this day and age. So the next thing I want to take you guys through is just how much faster the A7 IV is compared to the A7 III. When I got to using the A7 IV for the first time, you know, I said earlier on that one of the things that I noticed, you know, was using the camera in terms of handling. The second thing that I noticed was just how much faster it is to use the camera. You know, this is things from just turning the camera on. It just takes way less time. Things like going from, you know, playing back what you've shot and going back to shooting, entering the menus and going back to shooting, scrolling through the menus and changing menu items and stuff like that. Like, everything is just snappier, and that makes a world of difference when you're on an actual set that's like an event or something that relies on you having speed to capture the moment so that you're not losing out on what your client wants you to capture. I've been on events where, you know, the person who's handling the event or is lazing the event through me is like, yo, photos, then videos, then photos, then videos. And I've lost so many moments just spinning my mode dial on my A7 III and waiting for the camera to realize, okay, I've gone from photos to videos now, and I'm now going from videos to photos now, and okay, you need to put off the S-Log gamma assist mode so that I can see what I'm doing in photos. I can, okay. So it's just a whole mess having to deal with like that lack of speed when using the A7 III. Even if you're just doing video alone, changing your settings and all that stuff, it's going to be slower on the A7 III versus the A7 IV, which has a much improved processing unit. So yeah.
This A7 III, because I bought it in the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, it hasn't paid itself back, but I still regard it as a capable camera, especially for photography. I still regard it as a capable camera for video. It's still gonna be my main camera because I'm gonna have to return this A7 IV tomorrow. But if you can replace yours with an A7 IV. If you cannot, you know, you're really gonna struggle with this guy. It's really gonna be a tough time and there's nothing much you can do about it, yeah? But again, I have still shot really amazing stuff with this camera. It's not to say that I can't get high quality out of this camera. I've done that plenty of times. When these came out, like the industry standard of quality shifted to having something that looked this sharp. And now I think it's shifting now to have colors and dynamic range that's really good. You know, there's obviously gonna be an A7 V that comes out in a few years and it's probably gonna trump the A7 IV, but I don't think it's gonna trump it as much as it does the A7 III. Unfortunately, I'll have to send this camera back to Cameras Africa, who thank you for loaning me the A7 IV for this week. I had a great time with it. It's an amazing camera. One day. So as always guys, I always do remind you every single video, if you want to use this space, NMK Studios, if you want to rent it out, the space and the equipment as well, you know, I'll list the rates somewhere here. Again, I remind you guys that if you want to book with us, then in the description of our video, there you'll find the link to our website and also our Instagram account. So in our Instagram account, you can DM us and you know, ask for a booking there. So if you're a photographer, filmmaker, you know, we have strobes, we have continuous lighting, all that jazz. So if you want to shoot content on video or photo stuff, then hit us up. Check the description, NMK Studios. But guys, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you liked it, please do give it a like. If you found it helpful in any way, please do subscribe because that helps the channel out a lot. And to anyone who's been subscribing and anyone who has liked my videos, I really do appreciate it. So, you know, I really appreciate you guys. It tells me that you guys are liking my videos and that you want to see more, and that drives me to make more content for you guys. So again, thank you very much. But that's gonna be it for this video guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.